Chairman. It's great to be here. I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful drive up from Harrisburg. I hit the mountains at sunset. God's country, right? Can't beat it. Can't beat it. It's awesome. I just want to give a shout out to Senator Judy Ward, everyone's favorite senator. We are on the Community Pharmacy Caucus together. She's doing an awesome job over there. Thanks to Jim Gregory for inviting me. He's doing an amazing job in Harrisburg. God bless him, his desire, his heart, his passion to see some tough issues try to get resolved. He's been on an emotional roller coaster beginning of this year, so our blessings are with you, sir. Keep up the good work. One of the nicest, most gentle people I've ever met. There are certain people that get into politics and power and with title. Jim is your public servant. Hardworking, dedicated, humble, just the nicest guy in the world. So thank you. You're very blessed. Where's Lou Schmidt? I can never find him. He's so short. Oh, there you are. God bless Jim. Jim is on state government committee. He does an awesome job being a litigator. His interrogation skills are phenomenal. He gets on state agencies very well. I'm actually surprised I still have a committee. When I took over state government chairman at the end of last session, the current chairman had some surgery and he couldn't really fulfill any oversight roles. So after the election, I was the most senior member. So they said, hey, you gotta go deal with this election thing. I said, thanks, you must hate me. So I was also at the time the government oversight chairman, a brand new committee. We started at the beginning of the session, and it was a fundamental base to really drive and enhance oversight capabilities of the General Assembly. I personally think we don't do enough oversight. We allow the executive branch to run wild, and there's nothing like dragging a secretary in front of you and ask them, what are you doing and why are you doing it? That public, because they don't get public disclosure. Like, all our meetings are in public, all our bills are in public, all the amendments we do, we get public scrutiny all the time. These executive agencies hide behind their multiple shields, and we can discuss that in the era of COVID. But having them come in front and explain to the general public their decisions is a very, very powerful tool. So when I took over, we started an execution plan on election oversight. We started first with trying to get called a legislative service agency. It's a legislative budget and finance committee. It's a bipartisan committee. We asked them to do a full audit of the entire election system. That was Representative Jensen Copper's bill. It passed. So I'm sure you may be shocked. It was a party line vote. Only Republicans voted for it. And that board actually, for the first time ever, denied a request of the General Assembly to do an investigation or do an audit. We've never seen that happen. The Democrats on the committee just said, we're not doing this, is stupid. And honestly, the staff didn't help. The staff tanked it. They said, oh, we don't have the skill set, we can't do audits. And we're like, the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee, literally your job description is auditing. So we will be dealing with them coming up. I got other stuff to deal with, but they're under my oversight. We will be dealing with them. We also started addressing concerns at the county election director. We drafted a comprehensive list of questions, both to Department of State and all 67 county election agencies. The county elections directors, we got about half back responses. Some were very interesting. County elections directors were not happy at all with this entire election system. So there is some unique language, but it built a base to allow us to do a deeper dive into our election law. The Department of State was actually pretty forthright with their questions. At the time, we have Kathy Bookvar and Jim and Lou know my very dear nickname for our former disgraced and fired Secretary of State. So she We'll get into her. So she did do replies. They were pretty good and provided us a base. So we get shut down at the end of November. It's in the Constitution. So that December, we set up a game plan of how we're going to deal with this. Number one, we know what we know, right? We know the affidavits. We know the observer issues. We know from individuals in this room reporting what they saw during the election. We know all that. What we don't know, what was the root causes of this? How did this occur? How did Kathy Bookvar write guidance to recreate drop boxes in satellite offices when there's no language in the election code that says drop boxes or satellite offices? How does Kathy Bookvar, an election attorney, mind you, in her bio, she is an election attorney. I'm not an attorney, we have judges and attorneys in here. I'm pretty sure their job is, if they're doing private sector, they advise their clients of what the law says, right? She went to the Supreme Court, her as a head of a bureau, a Secretary of State, which by the way has, I don't know how many general counsels on staff within the governor's administration, probably like 1 million sitting there. She couldn't find anybody to explain to her what the law says. She had to go to the Supreme Court because she didn't like it. She did not like the law. They didn't get everything they wanted, so they sued, and she manipulated everything with her guidance to recreate the laws they wanted to execute in election at the last second. And it wasn't in the primary, it was the general election. They waited to the last second to do their dirty work upon the voters of this Commonwealth. So, we knew there was manipulation, but we didn't know if it's as bad as it is. We didn't know it's as bad as it is. So had we just come out and did bills, we would have missed 90% of the problems. 90% of the problems. And there are significant issues in our law. Number one, our law is from 1937. Anybody in here alive in 1937? Right. It was set in an agrarian society. And think about it, I usually phrase it like this. Like if you bought a car in 1937 and you never did any maintenance, and didn't do an oil change, didn't change the tires, I just ran it straight from 1937, what's gonna happen to that car? It's gonna break down, it's gonna bust, right? So with Act 77, we put superchargers on a failing car and it blew out the engines. But what it did was expose all the underlying issues we need to go back and fix. So I enjoy reading audits. I'm not an auditor by trade, but I enjoy reading audits. I like finding the problems. So we decided, and I'm surprised Lou didn't say it. I'm getting off this committee. This guy's crazy. I came up with a 2-year plan to execute the state government. Now, usually if you're in government, you don't say things like a strategic plan, we're going to plan, and we're going to execute, right? It's mostly like, hey guys, what do you want to do? What should we be doing? So, but I'm a little different. I like plan, I like execute. And you got to be strategic. You got to be very strategic. There's a lot of forces at play nationally, looking at Pennsylvania right now. So, we put together a 2-year plan for the committee. The first, we did launch initially 14 election hearings. Some people were like, that's a lot of hearings, why are you wasting your time? Because we had to dive in and figure out exactly how they did everything and make sure we don't miss anything. And that's a big issue. From I've learned about my friends from other states, other state legislators, they have very smart attorneys that will try to find loopholes in every single election law to exploit. There's one guy that the Democrats use nationally. He is very, very good. He will find and probe your weaknesses to design election policy that state legislatures have not approved. And it's worked time and time again. The acting secretary, you need to be aware of this. She came from North Carolina. Similar practices and strategy was used in North Carolina in 2018. She was part of it. This was not just Kathy Bookvar. This is a design to create confusion and manipulate our election law because it was easy to manipulate because we haven't done our job to reinforce that law. A lot of it was being scared to load an election law bill on the floor. Who knows what happened? But, so what do we do? Number one, we brought the wonderful, now disgraced and fired Kathy Bookvar. Remember that, just say it. Disgraced and fired Kathy Bookvar. That's great. Makes you feel a little better, right? We brought her in, and I gotta say, when we asked her about her guidance, because the big thing was on your guidance, why did you create your guidance? What was the reason you created this guidance? Every answer, I thought. I'm pretty sure I didn't hear a law there. What act gave you guidance to do what you did? She's like, well, I thought it would be a good thing for counties. It's not your job. You're not a legislator. You didn't win an election. You don't have the right to say, I thought this should be the law. Your job is to execute the law. And by the way, you're an election attorney, right? You should be able to read it and understand what it means. So that's problem number one. Problem number one is we realized that 1937 law was very gray. It provided too much leniency and too much leeway to really ensure that the laws would be following like they should be. The next hearing we had was on audits. So I like audits. They have a great role. And our audit system in Pennsylvania is completely broken on elections. Counties, before they certify, are required to call it 2% audit, so it's 2% or 2,000, maximum 2,000 ballots. Think about that. How many ballots were in Philadelphia? Now they're supposed to audit 2,000. What's that going to tell you, right? What we also learned was none of the counties do it the same way. There's no standardization at all in election law. Every county does their own thing. There's no uniformity, there's no standardization at all. It is the wild, wild west when it comes to elections. Now, elections directors, I think, generally try to do the best job they can with what they have and their understanding of the law. But it's a big problem when you don't have any integrity policy that validates the conclusion of an election. Now, this year, they had a pilot of risk limiting audit that was done in, I think, 63 out of the 67 counties. But that just shows that an accuracy level of the ballots. It doesn't look at mail-in ballots to how many envelopes you have. It doesn't look at the tabulation machines. It doesn't look at the log audit machines. It misses all these features. It doesn't do performance audits. It doesn't tell us if an election director operated the election in their committee or in their county based on what the law says. We have no idea. It's a problem. So then we started in with voter registration, and we started hearing from our county elections directors. And the number one issue our county elections directors has said, we need uniformity and we need standardization, which is really weird for anybody in local government to say, because normally they say to the state legislature, stay out of our business, we don't want you here. We can do a far better job helping our communities without you putting pointless mandates and make us do dumb things we don't need to do, right? It's not the case in the counties, because they know they need help. It's unattainable for them to make all these crucial decisions without any training, without any guidance, and late guidance. County elections directors were getting emails from the Department of State the night before the election. You can't operate an election like that. It's not fair to them, it's not fair to voters. So county's elections directors, they want a whole new election timeline. They want more standardization. They're screaming for help because they know our election system is failing the administration of election, and it's failing our voters. We've had experts. I know Lou's favorite was Pam Anderson from Colorado. Not Baywatch Pam Anderson, mind you. It's very nice. We should have had her here. Yeah, 3 hours of your life. She loved to talk. We asked her a question. She tried to explain the entire Colorado election law in your first question. So it was a little long. I brought her back a second time, and I thought I was going to get strung up in the Capitol because members were like, why are you bringing her back? But we learned so much from Colorado. So, for instance, the Supreme Court. The integrity provision on ballots is a signature verification. What does the Supreme Court do? Well, you don't need a signature verification on your ballots. What does that mean? You just send it in. It doesn't matter who sent that in. There's no check on that ballot. It's a huge problem. We learned you have to do signature validation. You can use AI. And by the way, most of our election directors and the volunteers and employees, they're not trained in signature verification either. It's a very tough thing to do. Voter registration. This is the scary part. Very scary. Voter registration is the gatekeeper. If you can't register to vote, you can't vote. You cannot get a ballot. What did we learn? We learned a lot. And the fun part is we've done so many hearings, we asked so many of the same questions, and we started getting different answers as we were going. So, first kind of hearing, we asked about voter registration. And we had Deputy Secretary Jonathan Marks, very nice man, career, Department of State, worked his way up through. It started with, we have a great integrity system on our voter registration. You have to provide your last four, your social security number, your driver's license. We send that to the counties. They do the validation. They do the check. So there's no way someone can register to vote without a validation. So we kept on asking election directors. We got one. We finally got the truth. And he said, we don't really. If you don't put your social security and your driver's license, we don't really check it. You don't need to do that. We register your vote. We try to validate it. But if we don't, you just register your vote. Think about that. No validation in this state for voter registration. None. Didn't know it. We did not have these hearings. We would not know that fact. Gets worse. Gets more worse. So, on the ballots, so when we follow up, and to get a mail-in ballot, you need to have the last four digits and a social security number, right? Supposedly. We asked, do you check that? They're like, oh no. If you don't have it, we'll still send you a ballot, and when you get it back, we call it an unvalidated ballot. It's an unvalidated ballot. We're going through the election law. There's nothing in here about unvalidated. Well, we'll try to check that later. Did you vote them? No, we don't vote them, but they just sit there. We're like, what is this? It's crazy. Even worse. I think it couldn't get worse. It gets worse. Before we had online voter registration that the department did, it's not in the law, they just did it. It's there, you can register online. They use what's called a web API. So they allow third parties to go out and register voters. They collect information, they send it back to the Department of State in a batch. It's computer electronic transmission. They will sort that and then they will send it back to the counties to verify it. So you could have institutions like Rock the Vote, the Democratic Party. I'm not actually sure Republicans use web API, but you can have these organizations with iPads or computers walk around entire areas collecting individuals' name, address, social security number, driver's license, right? Signature. They send that out to the Department of State, and they also keep it. They have that information. Because then they'll go out and reach out and make sure you go vote if you need a drive, if you need a driver driven to the poll, whatever, right? Which is also kind of a problem because they kind of got the last four digits of your social security number, right? Yep. That's a lot of damage you can do that name, address, last four social security, and your signature. We also found out that they don't really need to include the signature or the last four of your social security. So you have all these groups just registering people, setting it up. Elections directors are getting overwhelmed because you could do a mass dump right before the election of hundreds, if not thousands, of registration. Elections directors are overwhelmed. They got all kinds of paperwork. They got to prepare ballots, got to prepare machines, and they're just like, upload them. So, on top of that, remember, the same information you use for voter registration, the same information you use for absentee ballots. Same information, no excuse ballots, same information. So, we asked Jonathan Marks, simple question. So, if I am a third party who uses your web API, I registered 500 people to vote using that. What's to stop me from using that same information and applying for a ballot? I don't know, what was it look? There's no internal controls. Now, I don't know if that occurred. I don't know if the amount of people that went to the poll and were told they already mailed. I don't know if that was a result of the permanent list. I don't know if that's a result of they actually voted and they forgot about it, or I don't know if that's a result of someone figuring out that small little trick to figure out how to register voters and mail their ballot. Oh, by the way, those no excuse ballots, they don't need to go to your home address. You can reroute them to a PO box. You can reroute them. Again, we would have never uncovered any of this had we not taken our time and delved deep into these election hearings. So, how do we close this stuff up? Number one, we have our last hearing kind of coming up, and then we've been really radio silence on what our bill's going to look like. I'll tell you, it's going to be big. It's going to be a rewrite, and we're not going to allow this to happen again because we can't. The manipulation of the Democratic Party is insatiable. And Georgia, believe it or not, wasn't about Georgia. Georgia was about Pennsylvania. Democrats don't want changes in Pennsylvania. We are the key to the presidency. Next year, we will be the key to the majority in the Senate. Too many seats. They don't want changes. Georgia was a balloon floated to see if Jim Crow 2.0 is effective and will work. Because they know we are going to do a bill that will protect the integrity of our election system. So what's that mean? I already warned my state committee, we're going to be in a battle. It's going to be a huge battle. I don't suspect we get any Democratic votes, but we're going to make it tough on the governor. Our goal is to put them in a corner that's unattainable. We're going to make sure it's easy to vote and hard to cheat in Pennsylvania. If there's anything you get out of this, just keep saying it. Easy to vote, hard to cheat. It's really easy, it resonates, and Democrats really hate it. They do. My counterpart, so Democrats hadn't really participated in this. I mean, they might ask a question or something like that. But we have been building the case. We've been benchmarking every single reform, everything we want to do throughout this entire hearing. We have hours of testimony from lefty groups, righty groups, and we all have them saying the same thing, that we need to fix our election system. And when you have the best, there's two really good parts. So we had Frank LaRose, who's the Secretary of State from Ohio, come in, and they have a great voter ID law. And he was discussing how his voter ID law works. And he was explaining how he does reach out to voters. So my counterpart, African-American female from Philadelphia, Delaware County, who crashed her state-run vehicle 3 times. Without a license, true story. We did a bill, it's called Marco's Law, to remove legislators from having cars. It was great. We just recently, it was great. It was amazing. Brad Roy, it was his bill. He's got this great voice. It was amazing. It was amazing. So she asked Frank LaRose about his outreach, and then she goes, Secretary, you have a really great voter ID law. It really helps people and it really builds in all the protections that I think will really work. I went to my staff and went, benchmark that one. But that's what we've kind of gotten from them. They actually have asked good questions, but they build up a case, but there's very little participation. They'll do virtual to log on, and then they'll get off. I think they finally got marching orders of us kicking their butts really bad. So they've been starting to hype up a little bit, and she'll go on her little diatribes at the end of it. But it's been very successful. So you'll kind of hear radio silence for a little bit. We have a lot of drafting to do moving forward, because again, the underlying law is unworkable. It is a disgrace to the voters and to the Commonwealth. So we're going to do a much better job. We're going to redesign it, and we have great states to look at. You know, we bring up Florida a lot. Remember Florida in 2000? Yeah. Florida in 2020. Flawless election. Flawless. Their integrity provisions are bar none. Great voter ID law, signature requirements. They use AI scanners to verify signatures. They have multiple teams of observers watching everything at all times within eyesight. They go out to their nursing homes with observers. So remember nursing homes here in Pennsylvania, you could have a staff fill out a bunch of forms in a dementia ward and send them in. And we've had parents or kids of individuals in dementia wards saying, my dad's been a Republican all his life. He voted for Biden this year. It's never happened. So it's those things we would have missed if we just jumped and done those. And I'm very proud of the work. State Government Committee, they're hard workers. Before May, in 4 months of being in session, we'll have done more work than a regular committee does in 2 years. Between votes and hearings. So, like I said, I like to work, and I'm blessed with a staff and members on the committee that share that desire to hold the administration accountable and get things right for voters. So when we launch, we're gonna need your help. We need your help. You need to go talk to your neighbors. You need to go talk to your friends. You need to tell them how bad our election was. And here's my favorite example. Here's my favorite example. And I don't know why Trump didn't sue just for this little gem. Our 1937 election law requires every single county to give a lantern to their polling place. Yes. Yes. I have yet to see a lantern in a polling place. By the way, another fun one. So the elections are required to be run on daylight savings time. Daylight savings time in 2020 ended November 1st. The election was run November 3rd standard time. They're an hour off. It's in the election code. Why? I don't know. They also have heating, which should be utilities. It's just really old, antiquated stuff. So we're doing our best job to create a bill that works for a modern election system and is rooted in integrity. So I'm blessed to do the job we're doing. It's been tiring, but it's been worth it because we uncovered so much. And I'm pretty sure there's other states that I really hope will take a lesson from Pennsylvania. I wish Congress would. I wish the Democrats would actually do hearings on H.R. 1. I wish they would. And let me tell you, God bless Congressman here, because I couldn't do the job he does battling Nancy Pelosi and their extremist agenda. If the Democrats pass H.R. 1, it's over. Or Senate Bill 1, it is over. It is a complete national takeover of our elections. Same-day registration, eliminate all the integrity requirements. It is really bad. And if you benchmark our elections, everything in H.R. 1, our elections directors have disagreed with. They've completely disagreed with. And we're in this vote, and bringing it all back around to judges. We're in this vote because judges rewrote our election law in 2020. The election law that we passed in 2019 is not the election law that was administered in 2020. Because they knew having that law in place would not benefit them in election time. They did not want the integrity measures. They wanted to remove everything they didn't like. Luckily, we put a severability clause in there, otherwise they would have removed the secrecy envelopes. And that would have been a major problem because they would have seen those ballots before heading into the machines for tabulation. So one strategic thing we did do right. So we need help on the bench. We have great judges here. They have, I wouldn't say it's a weak, I get it. I get where you're going with that. But they have a lot of power. They really do. And good judges execute well. Listen, I don't like judges, I'll be honest. I'm the legislative branch. Now, executive branch, no, the judicial branch. It is what it is. It is what it is. Kevin Grobson, I have a ruling of his hanging in my office. He is a good judge. Drew Crompton, I'm glad is a judge because he kicked the House's butts a lot in negotiations. He's good, he's very good, he's passionate, but he's done an excellent job. We need to take back the Supreme Court. It's a step. If we don't get that step, we won't get that next step. So we need Kevin. We need all these judges to win. We need the ballots. By the way, I love that. And I gotta apologize. I'm actually from York County. Governor Wolf's from York County. John Fetterman's from York County. So on behalf of York Countyans, I apologize if you don't represent their values at all. I don't know what happened. I really don't. So we need these ballots. We need yes. We have no other options to combat the governor with the executive orders in place. We have no ability to defend your rights. We have no ability to fight back unless we get these ballots. We have tried veto overrides. We've tried everything in the past year to curb his authoritarian government. He has closed businesses. He has devastated our economy. He has ruined lives. Ruined lives. I have 30% of my businesses don't exist anymore. That's employees, that's families. I'll tell you what, we won because of the governor's COVID mitigation this last election cycle. I know, our president didn't make it through. Obviously, it went over many ways that was manipulated. But I'll tell you what, I used to track the COVID data every single day. My colleagues used to get the Grove report and COVID data. There's one thing that I think was missed underlying this entire thing, and that was the tracking data. You know, Department of Health get COVID, they call you and figure out where you went, and then they probably just close that business down, or go arrest your family and put them in a camp somewhere. That data, the responses for that started to dwindle as we got closer to the election. If you think about it, the population base, Philadelphia, that's where you get a lot of your COVID case counts. Heavy Democrat areas were saying, we don't trust the Department of State. We don't trust the governor's mitigation orders. We are not responding. We're not responding. Leading into that, I think that's why the voters reinforced us. Auditor General, Treasurer, we gained seats in the House, and we were projected to get decimated. I mean, the Democrats were measuring the Speaker's office at one point. But I think the failure of the governor's administration repeatedly, this entire process, led to people say, enough is enough. And I'll tell you what, he's playing games right now. He knows this is coming up. He knows he does not want his power taken away, and he is opening up the economy as case counts are climbing. He's being buddy-buddy with us, right? Oh, hey, I want to work with you. We'll have this awesome vaccine task force. Come in. And by the way, since Republicans joined it, our vaccine rates are up. We got the National Guard involved. Like this, I love the military. There's one thing they do really well, logistics. What's vaccine? It's all logistics, shots in arms. And they were just letting the Department of Health run it. A bunch of bureaucrats, they have no idea what they're doing. Because we're involved and because we said enough is enough, our vaccine rate is in the joke. But it's all a scam. He wants to make it look good so people will vote no and say, hey, it's not that bad. You need to remind them where we were a year ago. You need to remind them that he shut down businesses with less than 24 hours. Let me give you an example of how dumb they are. I have a paper mill in my plant, in my district. What does a paper plant need to manufacture paper? Wood. You know what they didn't allow to happen? Cutting trees down. They called me, they're like, hey, we've got a problem. I'm like, you're open. You're open. That's good news. They're like, yeah, but we're gonna have to close because administration didn't understand supply chain. You're not allowed to cut down trees. So we had to call. They did the same thing with coal and business after business. And I'll tell you, they left corporations open. You could crowd in 50,000 people in a Walmart, but God forbid you go to your local clothing store that had less capacity. We were safer there. So it needs to end. We need your help. And I know people are still ticked about the election, but this is do or die for our Commonwealth. And by the way, it's not a party issue. This is constitutional checks and balances. This is about reaffirming our Constitution. Other states are doing it. We have Republican states curbing executive power on Republican governors. We have Democrats legislatures curbing power on Democrat governors. So it's critically important you let people know it's about curbing the executive branch and right-sizing their authority under emergency declarations. So that's about all I have. Again, be ready for Georgia times 10. It's coming. Put your war paint on, because we're going to war. We are. We're set, we're ready, we're locked, we're loaded. And we're going to get this election mess fixed. We're going to have amazing elections. I'm not allowed to say this, but I call it mega election, making elections great again. Our PR guys. Don't tell us like that. So I appreciate your attention tonight. Hopefully I instilled you with some trust and some knowledge and know that we're doing the job you hired us to do. We're holding the administration accountable. We're figuring out how they did it, and we're going to take those powers away to make sure that voters pick the winners, not the process. Right? Let's say. Right? Easy to vote, hard to cheat. Thank you very much. God bless you.